everyone. Thank you for joining me, and we're so excited during this season to be able to bring you, hopefully, some information and some impartation that can help you in your transformation during this crazy season that the whole world now is in. And so, again, I want to thank you for being a part of this. So, just to be clear, am I looking at where am I looking? Wherever I want to look. So the cameras are on too as well. So we're on all of our digital platforms, Facebook Live, Keith Craft, Facebook Live, Elevate Life, and I guess every other thing, YouTube, Instagram, all of that. So again, can they share this while we're doing it? Okay, so if they click share, does it go on live? So forgive me for not knowing all this stuff, but I have people around me that know all this stuff. So click share so you can get information. I have with me two very special people. And so, again, from a camera standpoint, does it matter where I look? So I'm out looking right there. Is that good? Okay. I have two very special people that I want to tell you about that are not just random people, but I have the privilege of not only being their pastor, but also being a coach in their life, a leadership development coach in their life through our masterminds, and that's why I know about their expertise. And so again, I want to thank you guys for being with me and with us in this message. And the first person I want to introduce you to is Dr. Elisa Rich. She is, I'm gonna say it and then I want her to describe it because it just sounds really beautiful when she describes it. But she's an expert in public readiness for chemical, biological, nuclear, and radioactive events. She's also the CEO and director of research for Wipe Out Kids Cancer, and I love that. So thank you, Dr. Elisa, for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
And it's going to be and again, I want them to hear about you, and then we're going to get into the specifics of this. But then also Jennifer Martinez, as she is a wellness coach. She's owner of JMart Solutions, and I love the fact that you're helping people with really very practical solutions on how they can not only be fit physically, but also I think one of the greatest things that you shared that helped me to begin to think this way was what I need to be doing with my water. And so we're going to come back and talk about that because from my understanding, Dr. Elisa, Dr. Rich, is this a respiratory, is it a lung, is that where it's manifest?
That's correct.
Coronavirus?
It is a virus that prefers the environment of the respiratory system or the lungs.
Okay, so we're going to dive into that here in just a minute, but that's what makes hydration so important, right?
Yes.
With the lungs. So we're going to address both things. So Dr. Rich, tell them a little bit about you, and then we're going to talk about really some practical things from a very specialized place of knowledge that you have from a toxicology perspective of what people can do that I think will dial in some things beyond what we're hearing in the news and that kind of thing. So again, Dr. Rich, just tell everybody that's watching who you are, what it is that you do, what you've done.
Thank you very much. So I am CEO and Director of Research for Wipe Out Kids Cancer, which is a pediatric cancer research organization. We're 40 years old this year, one of the oldest in the country. And my background started through my master's in toxicology. I actually worked on one of the first programs for public health, implementing a program of readiness for any type of chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear event that could happen. And when I say readiness, we really did truly go through what would you do if. So I was just actually trying to remember how many years ago this was.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
When did it's one thing to, and again, we're going to talk about from a preparation standpoint with your body, but it's one thing to have a thought process, and that's even through our masterminds and things like that. We try to, as a thought leader, I try to get people thinking out front of their, in other words, get them way out front of their problems, get them way ahead of where they're going, to begin to think there before they go there, to grow there before they go there.
That's right.
So when did, from a toxicology standpoint, those conversations begin to happen? I mean, about...
So I can tell you, I was working on a program and actually was going under training 17 years ago.
Wow.
So if everybody can just breathe a moment, this isn't a surprise for any of us.
Right.
And we were being trained by people in the military that had come out of the military who had been trained for another 10, 15 years. So we literally went through scenarios of spontaneous evolution of a crisis,
Yeah.
or an event, we like to call it, because it is not necessarily a crisis.
Right.
And we prepared for what if. So we had everybody sitting around a table, and it was actually a fun experiment at the time, and we were given an anomaly. We were given a virus. In this case, let's just use a virus. And we had to contain it, and it was in X country. And within a few minutes of us figuring out how to mitigate it, all of a sudden they would give us another card and say, oh, it just jumped species. Now what do you do? And we would look at it and say, okay, new scenario.
Yeah.
And then they would bring something else around and say, oh, the bats are distributing it. Now what do you do? And so we just played this game over and over and over again for days on end. But it was so valuable because really what it taught you was, number one, preparedness.
Yeah.
To think calmly through a situation, and of course it's an evolving situation, so don't be static, be willing to move.
Right.
But as you said, be prepared, and when we say prepared, we don't mean you have to have a volume of things to do, because again, this is not a static situation, it's
Right.
very moving. But you're not afraid, you don't fall into fear if you are prepared. And as
Right.
you always say, preparation meets opportunity, then you have success.
Right.
So our key is to acknowledge our weakness in a situation, no matter what situation it is, identify where we can strengthen in that situation, and be prepared to do so. That doesn't mean you're going to have everything in order immediately.
Right.
You're taking steps, and that's what's really important, is to have that calm, as they teach in the military, the calm under a fire situation.
Right.
What do you do next? So it should be sequential, and you have the calm and peace that you can handle the situation.
And that's really, I want to say this to everybody, that's the advantage that we have as faith people, as spiritual people, as believers, that, you know, I'm reminded that Jesus, I mean, can you imagine, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this even in the weeks to come as we address our church and address a larger sort of thought process even in the church world. Can you imagine a day in the life of Jesus where everywhere that Jesus went, there was a crisis? From the woman with the issue of blood, it couldn't be solved. She'd spent all her money, to them needing to pay taxes and not having the money to pay their taxes, to 5,000 people needing to be fed, and there was no food but 5 loaves and 2 fish. I mean, think about it. Everywhere that Jesus went, there were these issues, and a day in the life of Jesus was not, hey man, we got to go hang out with Jesus and hear vast, wisdom and knowledge from heaven, and God spoke to us, and it was just so amazing, and we were just kind of laying back by the Sea of Galilee as he taught. No, there was always this divine tension everywhere that Jesus went, and because everywhere he was going to go, a miracle needed to happen. A miracle needs to happen in America right now.
Amen.
And what I want to hear from you, and I'd like for people to hear from you, because here's what happens. People hear about this, they hear the talking heads on television, and I'm talking about news sources primarily, that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. People on Fox News have no idea what they're talking about, with all due respect. People on CNN, MSNBC, or wherever you get your news, They're correspondents. They're reporting oftentimes a skewed view, or only the information that they have. And then, so people are going, oh my goodness, is the president making the right, like, how long have people like you who are experts, are you a toxicology expert? Is that what you'd be considered? Or?
I'm a chemical expert, technically, but I'm a toxicologist.
And a virus at its inception is a chemical or toxicology issue.
It's a toxicology issue. It's a biological organism, but it is a toxicology issue. And the transfer of it is very important. How it transfers, who it transfers to, the way it transfers, its environment that it likes to live in is critically important.
Yeah. Yeah, so the reason I say that is because it's like this happens, people go, oh my goodness, I got to go with the toilet paper. Which, by the way, I have a toilet paper solution for everybody.
Oh, man.
This is kind of the silly part of this. The toilet paper solution is you don't have to use a lot of toilet paper in this season if you're worried about toilet paper, but just take one square, fold it over. That's two. You can then double it if you want to. You know, if you're freaked out about toilet paper, and then also have some of the wet wipes. So you use dry first, wet second, and you'll find out you'll use a lot less toilet paper. I mean, some people's panic room right now is just filled with toilet paper. It's like as if toilet paper is going to get us through this. I just think it's so funny. I mean, forgive me.
It is funny. That tutorial was brilliant.
No, but I think it's so funny. So I think, again, just think dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, and you won't have to use as much, and you won't have to feel like you have to fill up your, I just think it's so funny. Like at the end of the world, which this is not, but at the end of the world, the shelves are emptied of toilet paper. Hey, but we're going to make sure that is taken care of. But anyway, how long have people in your field, which you're an expert, how long have they been thinking this way before this happened?
Decades.
Decades.
So that's where we want to give some calm. And you're absolutely right when you're talking about people are reporting things that they don't really understand.
Absolutely.
That's one of the keys to being a scientist, is knowing where your knowledge is, where your knowledge isn't, and don't step over in an area. Now, of course, these are reporters. They're trying to report the latest news, and they could be getting mixed information as well.
Of course they could.
So we give them a lot of grace, and we give them a lot of
And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just
No, I
saying
understand.
none of them are experts. So all they can do is to try to find experts. And by the way, experts have a bunch of different opinions. But when you're a scientist, when you're a doctor, it just kind of goes to the heart of the matter, especially when that's your expertise, which is in the chemical
We
field.
do try to stay scientific in this realm. So viruses have been around for millions of years. The key with this virus is that it appears to be an engineered virus of some sort. Now, information is coming out every single day that somebody could say, no, it's not an engineer. The other issue that doesn't seem to be as clearly stated is when somebody is tested and they have a positive test versus symptomatic and an active case of the disease.
Yeah.
Those are two drastically different things that we saw with the AIDS virus. And AIDS is a virus. So therefore, we have HIV positive, which does not mean you have symptoms. It does not mean your symptomology is going to be effective or being transferred to somebody else. It means that you have been in contact and your body is doing exactly what it should do, which is launching a beautiful attack by developing antibodies.
How resilient is the human body?
Oh, phenomenally resistant.
Talk about that for a minute.
If it's healthy.
Yeah.
The key is if it's healthy.
And that's why this virus, now again, they're saying now that younger people are getting it, and it's not just people that have what someone has called in the CDC a dysfunctional immunity system or a compromised immunity system, but they're saying that other people have gotten it. But the bottom line is the people that are going to be the most prone are the people who have a compromised immune system, and explain what that means. And I know that, again, this is general knowledge now, but we're gonna dial it in. But people who are the most susceptible, and what should they do?
Of course. The young are always susceptible because their immune system is not completely and totally formed. The elderly, because frequently, not always, frequently, they have some underlying disease. The immunocompromised, or somebody who does have, of any age, who has a confounding or compromised immune system because of any disease. Asthma, it could be something as simple as asthma. Well, asthma, if you have a respiratory virus, can be very serious.
Right.
But generally, if you're in good health, generally if your immune system is good, and you're practicing proper hygiene I like to emphasize that. I have told people, don't kiss on your elderly, don't kiss on your children. They'll be fine for a few days or a few weeks if you don't slobber on them.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is to contain some of the potential transferring that can be done from person to person. As we just did, instead of shaking your hand, I
Yeah.
bumped elbows
Right.
with you.
It was just automatic, and she
Yeah.
gave me the elbow, and I go, oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you for correcting me and helping me be better.
So that's part of what we talk about, the proper hygiene. And I was almost laughing at having to discuss proper hygiene not too long ago with somebody, and you start to realize how slack you get and how you think you're doing really well until an event like this comes along, and then
Right.
all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I need to do a little bit
Yeah,
better
there's almost hyper awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's okay to do that, especially at a time of illness.
Yeah.
It's okay to be hyper effective in your cleaning.
Yeah.
It's okay to be a little hyper effective in what you're doing with a tissue instead of maybe laying it on the counter. Throw it in the garbage, throw it in the toilet so it can go and it doesn't breed. Wiping your surface down. So a lot of it is that. Don't cough on somebody. If somebody's coughing, go in the other room.
Right.
You know, that type
Right.
of thing. And limitation, we talk about having distance and limitation as far as visiting a lot of people. Well, that helps us contain where it might come from.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't visit your mother or your father, especially if somebody's in need, or a neighbor if they're in need. But again, limit your contact of sharing any kind of juices, water, anything. Just don't share with people right now.
Yeah.
Don't eat off their fork.
Is this, in your opinion, like, and I don't know where the numbers are today, but I know the potential, of course, it's viral, right? So it could really spread, and it could really spread rapidly. But in your opinion, is this catastrophic in the world? I don't have a professional opinion on that, but I'm asking you. It's affecting people in the world, but in your opinion, is it catastrophic? Is it what? I don't.
No.
Okay.
So I was a member of a World Health Organization Chemical Risk Assessment Network working group, which we actually defined, and we looked at guidance directives on when do you declare a pandemic, when is something endemic to within a culture. It's not going to transfer too far.
And when is something endemic?
Generally, it's naturally occurring. Flu, we would say a flu is endemic to the United States. We frequently have it. It depends what series it happens to be at the time. Pandemic, I was a little disappointed in it truly being defined as a pandemic. Number one, because it causes tremendous amount of fear and panic.
Yes.
Now, I am going to also tell you, the White House hasn't called me today. So they haven't told me any great news. They didn't call me yesterday either. They didn't tell me anything that is top secret. I am not privy to top secret.
Yeah.
But as looking at the organism, it appears to be a very typical viral organism. It is behaving like a very typical viral organism. So when we look at that, we're not surprised. It is doing exactly what it does. It might change just a little bit. The interesting thing about this organism is that it's cold resistant, not heat resistant.
Wow.
Now, that's one of the really interesting things, because generally viruses like heat. They like wet, they like heat. Not all viruses, everything varies, just like people vary. The fact that this is cold resistant gives me a little different twist on it, and it also is slightly problematic in where it actually was initially exposed, because it is a cold environment in Wuhan. When we look at something like that, we really want to say, okay, then are we having in other countries massive outbreaks? No, we're not. Therefore, we wouldn't technically, even though I respect the federal and regulatory and global directives of calling it a pandemic, I don't consider it to be one that everybody needs to be so fearful about as a true pandemic like the 1980 flu that took out our mid population of working people.
Well, not only that, but what was the, and I'm not just expecting you to know all this, but around 2009, what was the N something?
H1N1.
H1N1, I mean, talk about that for a minute, because I think people forget. All right, so be thinking about that for a minute, but then I want to go all the way back to the Spanish virus. Okay, the Spanish virus being really, and and again, you would know a lot more about this than me, but am I correct in saying, in terms of affecting the world, 500,000 people died in the Dallas area alone? Dallas at that time, I want to say, had about 125,000 people in it, and Dallas had 5,000 people that died in Dallas. But you know, most people don't know the history of viruses that have, I'm talking about, that have been cataclysmic, that have been, and somebody says, well, we just don't want it to get to that point. That's why we're taking these measures. But I'm just saying, just talk about the N1 virus for a minute, because that took out a lot of people. And it was never really declared as pandemic, right?
No, it was not declared as a pandemic, and yet
why?
it took out way more people.
Why?
So as of today, we had 8,897 deaths as was recorded earlier today. Of course, there could be added since I looked at.
That's in a world of 7+ billion people.
That's in the world.
Okay, so just put it in context and let that allay your fear in the name of Jesus. In a world of 7+ billion people, how many today have died?
8,897 as of reported earlier today.
Yeah.
Let me put it into context. In pediatric cancer, we lose 1,200 children a month. Now think about that for a minute. We diagnose 15,000 a year. Right now, we're at somewhere around 200 to 300,000 not active cases, diagnosed positive.
Okay.
So we do have, absolutely, we do have that. If I added in the population, only in the United States, if I added in the population of people going through cancer, I guarantee you I would have very close to that amount of people who are currently or have been currently under treatment for cancer. So why is cancer not an epidemic and a pandemic at this point?
Right.
So again, putting it into perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. I want to put it into context, because I'm going to give you a weird example, but I'm going to come back to you on that, so stay with me. Disciplining your children, okay? It's one thing for your child to lie to you. What's your discipline when they lie to you? It's one thing for your child to have a bad attitude. What's your discipline? Is your discipline the same with every act of anarchy from your child or disobedience? No, you should, if you're a good parent, assign your discipline according to the egregious level of a child. Same thing in society as it relates to law. You know, the law, based on the kind of crime that you do, there's a misdemeanor and there is a felony. I don't think in a viral situation, this is my opinion, but I want to get your response on that. At what point do we look at just the potential for a virus and say, okay, based on the potential for the pandemic potential cost of lives, we're going to take these measures? I mean, at what point do you get so aggressive is my question. And why didn't that happen in 2009 or whenever it was? It was around 2009, that's my memory, with the N1. What's the difference? I'm just asking you.
So I would be very careful in saying I know the answer specifically to that, but what I'm going to tell you is, as we look at the situation, the number one thing you want to do is control a situation.
Yeah.
So it got out of control fairly quickly in that there were some migration issues during a holiday that a lot of Chinese who were living in Italy had gone to China for a celebration, come back, and all of a sudden they had a pandemic, they had an outbreak in Italy that nobody could figure out. The reality was it was a holiday, and they had brought the virus back to them.
Yeah.
When we look at a pandemic, we really look at, can we control it? Well, there's most viruses we can't control very well. What I think the biggest fear with this virus, if I may be liberal with my interpretation.
I'm just saying, what's the difference between the N1 and this one, and there not being the same kind of quote-unquote panic with the pandemic in 2009? And is it more technology? I'm asking for an opinion. It might be professional, it might be unprofessional. I don't know. I personally am surprised by people who are so afraid of this. okay? Even though I'm not trying to minimize that it's not a real thing, but I'm just asking you from maybe a professional opinion, what's the difference between an N1 and a coronavirus? What's the difference?
Well, COVID-19 is different, is a type of coronavirus, so of course there's multiple coronaviruses. So in this case, I'm going to go back, H1N1, of course we have flu all the time, and it used to be called the swine flu, and then our pork producers said, please don't do that because nobody...
we don't want to blame the swine.
Well, yeah, a country killed all
or
these...
Wuhan, or
poor
wherever
little
it came
pigs.
From. Or Spanish, the Spanish
Right,
virus.
right. They didn't like the Spanish
the Frisco
either.
virus. Anyway, whatever.
Right.
So
we are
that's
careful.
a sidebar,
That's what
funny
the
thing to me.
H1N1 is, swine flu, or quote unquote was swine flu. In this case, I would say that what they were really concerned about, number one, was it broke out. The outbreak was in China. So you're talking about millions of people being exposed in a very, very tight environment.
Well,
very,
and if you've
very
never
quickly.
been to China, I mean, just in Beijing, you've got these high-rises that are bigger than any building in Dallas, Texas, that are hundreds of them filled with tens of thousands of people in one building.
Right.
And they live like that. And as far as the eye can see, so go ahead.
And that's problematic.
Yeah.
So you're talking about massive populations, very, 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 very close. So the potential for spread increases with that kind of density.
Right.
Then the other question really was what is it? It was an undefined virus, and of course, you know, we laugh about, we don't really laugh about this, but we say, well, any day we should have a pandemic coming because we haven't had one in a while since 1917. We haven't had something. So we look at that.
Wait a minute. So the last one was when?
Well, I'm
Last
not saying
pandemic.
it wasn't.
What was the last one that was called pandemic?
Really, it was the 1918 Spanish flu.
So that was the last pandemic. What would be
and yet
considered
we didn't.
pandemic?
I'm not sure we defined it as a pandemic,
Yeah,
but
I
then
don't
I'm
even know
not
if
sure
they
we
knew
would
to use that word.
Yeah, I'm not sure we would have clearly used it. I know that it was a global impact. Of
Okay.
course, we know the story very well. Global impact.
Well, I'm
It
not
was-
sure people know the story very well, but look it up.
It's
1918
fascinating.
Spanish virus, because
Historic.
you'll see in terms of the number of people and what this COVID virus spread, it just helps give you perspective. I think everything is about perspective. I really do believe that. I mean, I've talked a lot about that recently. The gift of perspective is that we have things in the past that we can look at to go, okay, not like, this has never happened before. Here's the only thing that's ever happened before. We've never seen anything like this before in terms of the fear,
Yes,
in my opinion. Okay, so, but maybe as far as the COVID virus, we've never seen anything like this before either.
I have to say this, though. I think the fear makes it even worse because when your body is in fear or anxiety, your immune system is suppressed. Just like when you put sugar in the body, you know, we tell athletes don't do that so you can recover better and be stronger. Anxiety and fear actually leach minerals and things that help you stay healthy out of your body faster than sugar. And we all know sugar's bad for you.
So you could actually, but so it's does the horse come before the cart, or the cart from the horse come before the horse? The reason I say that is, okay, I've got great eyesight. Spanish flu, 50 million deaths.
Wow.
Did I read that right? That was a long way away. You've got to admit I've got good eyesight.
I'm impressed.
Okay, so 50 million deaths in the Spanish flu.
And again, the similarity between this flu, the COVID-19, and the Spanish flu is a migration issue.
Okay, so stop right there for just a second because I want to come back and I want to finish this statement. So fear suppresses your immune system. And then if your immune system isn't right, you're more prone to fear.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying about the horse coming before the cart or the cart coming before the horse. Because that's a reality, right?
It is.
So in other words, if you're not healthy, you're prone to more fear. If you're not physically healthy, you're prone to more emotional fear. And then if you allow yourself to just go ahead and feel the fear and you go with the fear rather than facing the fear. And by the way, when I say face the fear, what's in your face? Your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth. How do you face your fear? What are you hearing and what are you doing with your hearing? The Bible says faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. How do you face your fear? What are you seeing? A lot of times what we see is not what it actually is. We see the way we see. We see what we see based on the way we see. How do you face your fear? With your own mouth. What's coming out of your mouth? Is it reactive or proactive? Is it positive? Is it negative? So some people aren't able to face their fear.
Yeah.
What's in your face? Your thinking. That's what's behind your face. On top of your face is your brain. And so when it's compromised,
Yeah.
what happens is
You lose minerals. And then on top of that, when you lose minerals, you lose your cognitive ability to be able to fight anything, really, if you think about it. And then if you're not bringing it back into the body, your body has to find it from somewhere.
so
In order for your heart to work.
Fear is like an emotional and spiritual virus
It is.
that just spreads until you take action. We're going to come back to that in a minute because
Yeah.
you're going to tell them just a couple of ways to take action, okay?
Simple.
But back to what you were saying. So
that was good.
so why is this different than just to say the swine flu or the N1? Why is this virus different?
The migration is the first issue.
Okay.
So there was a quick migration across the globe, which nobody really identified why. So that was an issue of containment, immediate containment. There was a high
It
population.
was containment by default, not by design. So the containment was we didn't know it
That's
came from
correct.
China. People are in Italy. Did they go to Italy or come from
No,
Italy to China?
they were Chinese living in Italy that went to China for a celebration that came back to Italy where they live that brought the virus because it takes a 2-week incubation
Interesting.
period.
Interesting.
So that was, why on earth would it be there? Oh, it jumped, it went through the whole globe. And it takes a while to really understand,
happened?
especially migrational issues, because you have to, everybody knows how many thousands of people on a daily basis fly.
So the
it
difference
takes
is
a while.
migration, and then what else?
The other one is the density of the population, the enormous density. The third issue was really, nobody really understood the virus. What was it? It was a coronavirus. Well, we have a lot of coronaviruses. What kind of virus it
See,
was?
that's the first time I've ever heard that, and maybe you have too. We've got a lot of coronaviruses. Woo!
They're
This is
different
just-
species.
But this has been around COVID-19 because it's been around since 2019. Is that right? Is that what the 19 means? So the H1N1 in 2009, 500,000 people died. I didn't even know that. 500,000 people died with the N1. Are we finished with the 1, 2, 3? How was that ever contained? Do you remember? How did that virus stop? We didn't have the shutdowns.
We did not have the pandemic declaration. We didn't have certain things that have been implemented now, which is one of the problems why there was high deaths.
Okay.
So when you do declare a national emergency, you have the access and ability to lift some of the rules that we normally operate under because we are in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
So people can get to, can get the proper treatment, can get access, and the government can get money. You can also control populations by saying, hold on a minute. Now, China is great at controlling their population. And again,
Yeah.
this was an unidentified, at first, virus that they weren't sure whether it had mutated from an animal to a human or a human to an animal or vice versa. And again, that's an incredibly complex
But
process.
if you've ever been to China, and I have, now I've not been to Wuhan, but you can look up Wuhan and look up their street markets. It is animals hanging everywhere. I'm talking about just, so you can understand how a virus could start there.
And how do you
even if
control
it didn't,
it?
and listen, nobody's trying to post blame, but whether it was in the lab, like some have suggested, or whatever it was, the bottom line is, it's an atmosphere where certainly a pandemic virus can start and begin to spread, right?
Yes, and then how does it spread? So if you don't know what the organism is, you don't know how it really does like to spread. Maybe it's waterborne. Maybe that was the panic of the waterborne. Luckily, they figured out fairly quickly that it was an airborne exposure, therefore, it had to be an aerosolized or it has to come through the lungs. It's a respiratory issue. So we at least identified that. But at first, when you don't know, you're going to do everything you can. You're going to check your water. You're going to shut down the water possibly. You're going to tell people only drink bottled water.
Yeah.
The toilet paper was a little, I'm going to use the term humorous and yet it's not humorous, and I'm not making fun of anybody. I can understand, I kept saying, it's not dysentery. If it was, I would be in line with you. You know, because the dysentery you've got, you go through a lot of rolls of toilet paper with something like that.
I see.
But this is a respiratory, so you don't have to panic.
Yeah.
But at first, if you don't know what it is, you have to say it could be all these factors.
Yeah, but listen, here, again, I don't know. I think the toilet paper thing is not so much that, because I don't think people have that knowledge.
Yeah.
But I think the toilet paper thing is, I can't run out of toilet paper.
Everybody's doing it,
I'm
so I have to.
I'm like, anyway, I'm sorry. I
was-
keep coming back to that. But from a professional standpoint, it would make sense. But I don't think most people were operating out of a professional reality of this can be passed on,
No, there was no,
dysenterily or-
there was no, I use the term gossip and fear-mongering. So I got lots of articles sent to me, look at this, tell me this, what do you think about this? And going through a lot of it is, if you don't do this, we will all die. If you don't, and when you get to that point, that's a very obvious fear-mongering. And it's the intent to control behavior, it's the intent to instill fear. Logically, you go through a process of identifying, is this true, is this not true?
Yeah.
And again, that's really what I encourage people to do. Knowing that we don't always have an answer, we have suggested possibilities, sure, but do I have the absolute answer? No, like I said, Washington hasn't called me today. So what we can look at and say, this is pretty typical. It's behaving this way. Now, for people who really are afraid, I get it.
Yeah.
But understand, I always like to say, this is the loss of innocence. It's a real challenge at times when anybody goes through a horrific situation that they didn't know occurred. It's like a police officer sees shooting on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So you become not callous to it, but it's commonplace enough that you know how to react.
Right.
But when you've never been in a shooting, you're horrified.
Yeah, I think that's what drives fear. I mean,
Yeah.
and we touched on that a little bit, but what drives fear is the unknown. And that's why, in fact, I reposted something on my Insta story that you posted that I said.
Yeah, that you said.
And that was that when you go through tough times, it makes, and whether that's by default or by design, but like when you're working out, for instance, when I am working out, when I'm actively working out and I'm pushing my body to sometimes the breaking point, then when things come by default, sickness and disease, it doesn't hit me as hard. The pain doesn't hurt as bad because by design, I've put myself through pain. So there's a lot to that we can all learn. So I'm going to come back to you in a minute, but let's talk about some practical things. One last thing with you. I know a little bit of the answer, but I don't know enough scientifically, and I wanted to put you on the spot, but I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. What's the deal with 6 feet of separation?
6 feet of separation?
Yeah, so it's why these social, what they're calling these social, what is it? What's the word they're using?
Distancing.
Social
Distancing.
Social distancing, and they're saying 6 feet. What's the deal about 6 feet? Because I know that's a reality.
So it is real. And what we do is basically if you cough or if you sneeze, this is a virus. It's a fairly large organism. Surprisingly enough, it's not like some of our industrial dust that's phenomenally slow or tiny, tiny, tiny. It can flow just hundreds and thousands of feet. This is a fairly heavy big boy virus, and it's going to fall within approximately 6 feet.
Yeah, so that's when really a particle, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but where it's called from an aerosol, if we think about aerosol, that where a particle of a virus is carried up to 6 feet, but after 6 feet, it has no efficacy.
It lands.
It lands.
Approximately, it will land, and the goal is, of course, then to wipe down surfaces, et cetera.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be sneezing in somebody's face or coughing in somebody's face. So 6 feet gives us an ability to, first of all, dodge if you do cough at me.
I can dodge you.
But secondly, it gives me that opportunity, or it gives the organism the opportunity to really fall out of the air stream, in essence. And of course, that's an average, because I could go through all sorts of air modeling and and show you how it actually could move 9 feet,
Yeah.
given the right wind patterns, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Just get
exactly,
6.
exactly.
Just go with the 6.
So I think the social distancing is good, but I think we have to really be socially connected.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about this era in which we live, that we can be connected even though we're being distanced. But isn't it interesting that something that's evil, I'll say evil, not this, that, oh, the devil made this happen, but something that is the total opposite of good requires social distancing. And therefore, what does that tell you
How important.
the opposing should be, the paradoxical reality should be, that for you to be truly healthy, you need to be closer than ever. And so the thing that could kill you causes you to have distance. The thing that is going to give you life causes you to be close. And I just find that really interesting. It's a natural, supernatural correlation.
Well, and there's lots of families right now that are connecting for the first time in a long time, so I don't think it's a bad thing in that sense at all.
Absolutely. So talk to us about some practical things, because I think, like I'm again, not I don't consider myself just an expert in the field of health and wellness, but when you've been well and you've been healthy like I have, with the exception of the things that were uncontrollables with my blood that caused some artery issues with me that we've now addressed and fixed. But for my whole life, I've been on a health and wellness journey. But I'm fascinated by, in relation, the reason I want to have both of you here is because it is a respiratory situation. And what can we do for our lungs that most people do not know, because I did not know this, maybe you know this, but how important is hydration, but not just drinking water and not just drinking bottled water, but talk to us about that.
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question.
Okay, so let's
because
start.
it's really two major questions in one. Number one, what's wrong with just bottled water? And why do we need to add anything to the bottled water? That's the one question. But then the other question is that for our lungs and for hydration, I mean, how important is it that we stay hydrated?
Okay, so I had Dr. Starkey, who has been in the hydration industry for 30 years, on my podcast 2 days ago, and he said something that was really interesting.
So tell everybody about your podcast, where it is, where they can find it.
Oh, JMart Wellness Solutions.
Okay.
On every listening platform.
So just JMart,
and I'm on YouTube.
JMart Wellness Solutions. That's how they can find your podcast. Okay,
Yeah.
So Jennifer Martinez.
Instagram is JMart Solutions, but
Okay,
you
good.
know,
Okay,
business.
good. Perfect.
So he said something interesting, and I think you'll agree with this, that when you're dehydrated, your lungs, the mucus lining in your lungs is stickier. Okay, and majority of Americans are dehydrated. We just are, and we're also malnourished. We don't know it.
Yeah.
We're not malnourished in the sense of not having enough food,
Right.
just not eating the right things to fuel our body. Nutrition.
If you're gonna do one thing, stay hydrated.
Right.
Less food is okay,
Well,
but stay
Stay
hydrated.
hydrated because you're going to give your lungs a fighting chance. Like if it's a lung
Yeah.
disease, you want to have healthy lungs.
So before we dial it in, how much water should they be drinking every day?
On average, they say you should, whoever they are.
Yeah.
They say you
you're
should
in the
do
field.
half your weight in ounces a day. That's minimum though. That's not if you're working out. That's just the average person, because if you perspirate,
Every
you know,
time you talk,
every time you talk,
you're dehydrating. So
think
if you're
you
a
lose-
talker,
I think you lose like I don't know how many ounces. I don't have
Okay.
it in front of me, but we're very dehydrated. So in
so
order
just
to
think,
so the
whatever your
lungs-
weight is, get that half that much at
Oh, yeah.
least water
Thank you.
a day. Okay, good.
Yeah, so 100 pounds, you do 50 ounces
So
a day.
do that during this season, no matter what. Just say,
Right.
okay, I weigh 400 pounds. I need 200.
Right, and we were
That's
meant.
a lot of water.
And we were meant to drink water out of a river. We weren't meant to drink it out of a bottle, distilled, or that RO and all the things that I use with my water. And so when we do that, we strip the water of all the nutrients that we need to be healthy, right?
Yeah, because people think if I drink bottled water, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's good
It's
enough.
still better than soda.
Okay.
Let's be clear, or
Yeah,
juices and stuff like that. Anything with high sugar in it. It's still don't think that bottled water is bad. But there are things you can do that are simple, and I like to keep things simple.
Yeah.
Like you had a podcast on Wednesday that you put out that it was just breathe.
Yeah.
What does that do? It reduces stress.
Absolutely.
We need to breathe, guys. You know, we're all together, we're with our families. So what we want to do is just protect and guard ourselves. So one of the things, that's why you wanted to have me come on, is we talked about what you can do that's simple, that's foundational, that's basic, and you can attest to this. If your body can't absorb vitamins, if you don't have minerals in your body that are balanced correctly, okay?
Yeah.
Your heart doesn't work right. Your
So
blood
just
doesn't flow right.
Just like a swimming pool, and you address this, make sure I'm right. Just like a swimming pool that has to have the right pH balance.
Correct.
Your body has to have the right pH balance. Would that be correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
It's
So in other words,
constantly.
most, or maybe all, is it true that all inflammation is a result of being out of pH?
Yes.
We do believe that is a profound cause. Absolutely.
So one of the ways to get your immune system right and to get your lungs from being, you say,
Sticky.
sticky.
Yeah, so it's a great breeding ground for disease if it's like
is
that.
to get the proper hydration, but not just drinking water, but making sure that the water that you're drinking has the right pH balance that gives your body a chance to be in proper pH balance.
And the
Which
nice
would be
thing
above
about
7. We want to make sure that water gets above 7. That's our key.
So water, say that one more time.
We want to make sure that the pH of the water is above 7.
Okay, so what
So-
is this? Do you know?
I have no idea.
What is in a bottle of water? Do you have any idea?
Oh.
What would be the pH balance? Because
It's just
now,
everyone's different.
yeah, so now you walk into a store and you get 8.8, you get 9 point, you know, you can buy water and it's going to cost you $5 a gallon if you buy that water that has the proper pH balance. But people, I know some people that don't know, they see it, they go, well, I don't pay that much. I'll just get the 98-cent water. Talk about it.
Well, okay, so back to, we're supposed to drink out of rivers, you know. Now, I don't know a lot of people who are going around like, why were we meant to drink water that way? Because of the mineral content that's in it, right? Well, now we have to clean the water because we don't want bacteria and all that kind of stuff in our body. So what do? We need to put it back in because we used to get it from our food, like fueling our bodies, like broccoli and veggies and fruits. Those are the things that come out of the soil.
Right.
And what is the soil? It has minerals in it, and then you know you consume it, and then you have mineral balance in your body, and you're healthy.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is we don't have enough mineral content in our soil anymore. It's been so depleted.
Right.
So people who are eating plant-based diets are not getting the mineral contents that they should be getting. You're getting good nutrients.
Right.
Let me be clear on that. All right. But if you don't have the mineral content, the magnesium and the things that
And
that are important.
that's what'll keep your body at a pH balance.
Yes.
Right?
It will,
Is that right, doctor?
And all those minerals are critical to organ function.
Okay.
Organs, thank you.
Right.
All right, good.
And
So,
your lungs
yeah.
are an organ. They're kind of important, you know.
Okay.
So is your heart.
Absolutely.
No, a little bit. So yeah, so when this all came about, I'd already started in a company that is hydrating, you know, the labor industry and first responders, because my husband's a first responder, and the way to hydrate your body and let it absorb it and be healthy and be in that pH balance that you were talking about, you need to have minerals in your water or in your diet,
Okay.
right? And so an easy way to do that is to have an electrolyte mineral complex, and that's what JMart Solutions is, and you just put it in your water.
So talk about this. So this is JMart Wellness Solutions. And again, we're not trying to peddle you a product.
No.
We're trying to give you a solution here. So reduce muscle cramps, increase productivity, stress reduction, focus energy. But and also, if you don't have proper hydration, it'll affect your energy.
Yes.
Because really
And your
the
thinking.
reason we die, tell me if this is the truth. I don't die from cancer. I die from cellular, what's the word I'm looking for? Degeneration.
Dysfunction.
So in other words, within the cell, we have approximately how many cells? Is it 300
Billions.
million or a billion or something? I can't.
Billions, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's 300 billion. But I think within each cell is the energy. And so what happens is, it's not like just a cancer cell, it's at the cellular level, there has to be something that gives the cell energy or it's overwhelmed by the virus. It's overwhelmed by the inflammation. It's overwhelmed.
Simple viruses,
sickness.
inflammation, the ratio of your minerals get off so your heart can't pump correctly. because your heart is.
So if you don't have the right minerals, you can be drinking water, not have the right minerals, it's going to cause heart problems.
Right.
You can be drinking water and think you're doing everything right, but it's not, doesn't have the right minerals, and it's affecting your lungs. You can be drinking water, and by the way, drinking more water is better than not drinking
Yes.
water, but you can not be getting the minerals. And first responders, the reason that was so important with police and firemen is because they're running into danger. And is it an energy issue with them? Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah, and just magnesium to recover too.
Okay.
It's for recovery also. You know, when the adrenaline goes down, you need to recover. This started with athletes. We do this with athletes. We give them, you know, electrolytes, right?
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Because they're exerting themselves, and so in order for them to absorb the water that they're drinking, they need to have that the mineral content, the
Yeah.
electrolytes, right?
And so what does this do? So you take this, you put it in.
Might need your help with this.
This is 8 ounces of water. How many drops?
Oh, and 8 ounces of water? Well, it says on there different.
Yeah.
Depending on your exertion level
Yeah.
would be different.
Okay.
How you would use that. Now I would use just like a maintenance if you're, you know, if you're not an athlete, if you're not exerting yourself, if you're not in the labor industry, if you're not on a rooftop sweating.
48 drops to 32 ounces of water. 12 drops to 8 ounces.
It's inexpensive, and it's a way to get the nourishment that your body needs to be healthy without having to go and buy 10 pounds of broccoli
Right.
and eat it, because kids aren't going to do that anyways, right?
So in other words, in this, you're going to get the minerals
That you would get from like eating fruits and vegetables
that you're not going to
that
get.
you're not getting. Like I have a light it's like I did it on YouTube. It's a demonstration. That's the word. And it's you stick the circuit. I might need your help on this. Into the food to see if the light bulb goes on. There's mineral content in the food.
Wow.
So I did it with an organic apple from Costco. I don't even know if I should have said that.
It's okay.
You know, and it didn't turn the light on.
Yeah, so in an apple, it didn't. If the minerals were right, it would have
It would
turned
have
the
turned
light
the light on.
It's
So the
very
potato, it did.
But that was an organic apple, you said. Even an organic
Even
apple
organic.
didn't have
Well,
enough
what's
minerals.
organic?
wasn't the
But here's the
proper
thing, guys.
minerals.
Organic just means it's just not pesticides. So it's still, we don't know where the soil is that we're getting our stuff.
Right.
Like a banana, it turned the light on. Well, what's in it? Potassium, right? Well, if you would have to eat like 10 bananas to get a couple of drops of what you've got in this, right? Of the right kind of potassium that you need to absorb the water to be healthy and to be hydrated and to feel good. And, you know, it comes down to feeling. Like if I feel like poo, I'm going to be mean to you. I mean, you know, it's
Well, or worst case scenario in this
manage stress.
context, so you've got a square that's blocking the information. In this context, so we've got 37.2 trillion cells. Thank
Wow.
you. They're giving me the information. I knew it was a lot. When I said 300 billion, I said that's not enough. So the cells in our body need the right minerals, and the bottom line is food is not going to do it. Drinking enough water is not going to do it. You've got to have a balance of minerals.
Balance.
And again, we're not trying to just peddle this or sell this, but I'd encourage you. I just wanted Jennifer to come on because she's an expert in this area as it relates to health and wellness, and Dr. Rich because she has definitely a chemical knowledge of really what's going on. So kind of final words here as we end up. What would you recommend in this season, and what would you recommend? So from a professional standpoint, what would you recommend to
Number
people?
one thing, don't worry. Number two, be precautionary. Make sure that you are using the normal hygiene or the recommended hygiene of staying away from somebody 6 feet, if you can.
Yes.
Of course. Washing your hands on a regular basis. I believe in soap and water.
Yeah.
I believe the best thing to do is soap and water. If I cannot have soap or water, of course you can use the little
Sanitizer.
sanitary whatever you, but here again, people rely on things when they really shouldn't.
Right.
If I don't have water, that's another situation. But soap and water is critical, and the washing long enough is critical as well. Another thing with the water that you drink, and actually it's very important that you not just hydrate, but as you're hydrating, you're actually washing bacteria and viruses down your throat into your stomach, which is great hydrochloric acid, the body is able to deal with it, and it's excreted. So people who do not drink on a regular basis and go hours and hours and hours, as many first responders do, you are allowing the body, the viruses, bacteria to build up within your nasal passages, within your throat. So that's one of the reasons why we say drink. I always encourage everybody to, when there's a flu season, when you aren't feeling well, every hour on the hour, drink a hot cup of water or tea or something. Again, that heat, viruses have a very narrow range of tolerance. So their temperature range can't shift too far one way or another. It breaks down the virus coat.
Drink something hot every hour. That's brilliant.
It's great. It's awesome.
Good.
It really helps flush your system out. And you can alternate hot and cold. Children can do it. It's very simple. You can give them something warm to drink. It can be broth. It can be anything.
Give me your, and again, I'm not asking for prophetic insight. I have what I believe is prophetic, but I'm not asking for that. But I'm just saying, in general, what do you think we're looking at here? I mean, okay, so we're 2 weeks into it. What are we looking at? I mean, what's going to happen?
All right, well, you are the prophet, so I will defer to you on that. But as I'm looking at it, I'm looking at a situation that I think is going to resolve fairly quickly. I think within a couple weeks, I couldn't even get to Starbucks today. The line was so long. Okay, I'm just saying. We are out and about. Are we being more careful? Sure. Should we be? Yes, of course. Do we follow directions that the government is giving us? Yes. Now, that being said, I think that this is going to resolve very quickly. I do not think we're going to see massive numbers. I do not think we're going to see a pandemic situation. I do feel like the government acted swiftly and correctly in containing. Whether or not people are happy about it, it could have been a major benefit that we did calm down a little bit, stay in place, as we call it, shelter in place.
Well, it was crazy. Until yesterday, the Florida beaches were just jam-packed. That kind of stuff, I think, is insanity. And in a situation like this, that's me personally, is going, hey, okay, just be wise. Have faith, be wise. I mean, that was my message last week.
Yeah, but vitamin D is the #1 thing you can do to fight viruses.
Vitamin D,
virus.
any particular 1, 2, 3, or just all vitamin Ds?
From the sun.
The sun.
Vitamin D. So go out, take a walk.
boosts.
Would that be your advice, closing advice? Drink the water. I would encourage you.
outside.
Again, I would encourage you just
JMartSolutions.net. Just let them contact.
JMartSolutions.net, and just add this for the rest of your life. Not like just during this, but just let this be an excuse to go, you know what, I'm not going to pay $5 for a gallon of water. I'm going to get the right minerals, my pH balance. If your pH balance is right, now again, I know this is a loaded question, but if your pH balance is right, are you going to be better? Because cancer and heart disease are the two #1 killers. But are you going to be better to fight cancer if you get some kind of cancer? If your pH balance is right, are you going to be able to fight it better?
Your body will be in a much better position to fight off anything that comes towards it. Of course, that's what we are talking about, being prepared physically. Being prepared so that you are taking care of the body, so that your body can do what we need it to do here, which is whatever your assignment is for the kingdom of God. Again, so that's where preparation actually meets that opportunity that we talk about. We need to be doing that on a regular basis. So many of these things are so simple. This is not difficult things that we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to lose 20 pounds by Friday. All we're saying is implement small steps that will make your body healthier along the way. It'll make all of us healthier as well. And then we do need to have the body of Christ healthy. We don't want them to, we don't want us to be sick. We can't do what we are put on this earth to do. So that's really our focus. And I think it's a great reset time for everybody.
So good.
I do too. And we're just going to close it out here. But I just wanted to come to you today. And I love what Dr. Rich said. Do not worry. First thing I said, what would you suggest? Do not worry. That's what Jesus would say too. Do not worry. This is not a surprise. Take precautions, but don't allow fear to grip you. And the Bible is full of stories. I'm going to preach about it this weekend. But it's full of stories about there were plagues and wars, and yet God intervened. And that's what I want to say prophetically. I agree with you. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. I don't think, now there's going to be some aftermath that we're going to have to deal with. But sooner than later, this virus is going to stop and cease and desist in the name of Jesus. And I'm standing firm in that, and we're going to have solutions. But right now, even if there wasn't a virus, I would say to you, do the JMart solutions. Get your water right, get your hydration right, get your minerals right, all in one solution. And so anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for also being a part of Mastermind. And I would just say to you as we close, if you're interested in being a part of our Mastermind, you can contact us. There'll be contact information that will be available to you. But these are two people that I have the privilege to not only have in my life, that in this season are experts in this particular area that I wanted to introduce to you, because I know them, because we are on this personal growth and development journey together. So I just speak peace over you in the name of Jesus. I speak solutions in the midst of this problem. And we can know this. There's been a whole lot of smart people like this person sitting over here that for decades have been addressing this issue before it was ever addressed. We are not out of control in the name of Jesus. And this thing is going to stop. It is temporary. And anyway, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thanks. Well, thank y'all for that. And again, I just think people are sitting around, and so, why not?